Welcome to Ideagen TV. Today, I am thrilled to have with us Michelle Korsmo, President and CEO of the National Restaurant Association. Michelle, welcome.
Thank you, George. So nice to be here.
Michelle, always great to see you. Really excited to hear from you. I'd love to start this interview going right into, could you kindly update us on what's happening with the National Restaurant Association in 2023?
So glad to talk about what's going on with the National Restaurant Association and our members. As you know, as the National Trade Association representing restaurants in the United States, we're all about advancing a thriving restaurant industry in America. And we support operators who are generating nearly $1 trillion in sales and employing nearly 15 million people in 2023. So those numbers are a nice increase since the last few years of pandemic, when restaurants were shut down and then had to entirely pivot, as we all know, to online and takeout food service, as opposed to the wonderful in-restaurant experience that so many were focused on providing. Every day, we're thinking about training and education for our members. We spend a lot of time doing research on trends and insights. The core of who we are as an organization is our advocacy work. And of course, we build communities within the restaurant industry. So that work continues, and in a really positive way in a post-pandemic timeframe.
Well, Michelle, clearly the industry has been at the fore for jobs, for safety, for innovation. I mean, where do you begin? And so coming out of COVID, I think it's safe to say that we're in the post-COVID era, although there are remnants of COVID that certainly permeate the economy, et cetera. But could you describe what that experience was like for you, and maybe more specifically for your members, and how you all adapted? How did your members adapt through the incredible challenges and headwinds that we experienced?
Yeah. At their core, every restaurant operator is an entrepreneur. And the thing about entrepreneurs is that they're always looking for the new opportunities and finding the new growth potential. It was a challenge, and not every restaurant made it out of the pandemic. And that's heartbreaking on so many levels. But the spaces where restaurant operators really found opportunity in those challenges, I think we're seeing new growth opportunities as we go on to our day-to-day business in a post-pandemic environment. Specifically, we've seen growth opportunities in off-premise and in cocktails to go. So off-premise would be those meals that are consumed outside of the dining room of a restaurant. And traditionally, that was done through drive-through and some level of carry-out. But we're seeing so much of that now happening beyond just drive-through or carry-out, but in third-party delivery, in meals to go, and different off-premise environments. In fact, one of the interesting data points is that 66% of consumers are more likely to take their meals off premise than they did before the pandemic. So we really see off premise as a space for growth in the restaurant industry, and one that will continue. Consumers are looking for the value and the enjoyment of restaurant meals outside of the dining room, and that's exciting. The other thing that we've seen is an increase of cocktails to go. And this was a space where the industry really pivoted to think about how to provide a great experience for customers during the pandemic, when so many of the meals, if any meals at all, were done through takeout. And cocktails to go was a new law that needed to be passed by localities and states in many cases in order to allow that to happen. And most of those provisions were temporary, although we now see 21 states that have made cocktails to go permanently legal. And I think that when we look at how we've innovated on ensuring that we have safe delivery, we have control over the product so that it's only being served to those of legal drinking age, it's been a really nice growth space for restaurants in finding cocktails and cocktails to go as part of the takeout part of how they're serving consumers.
Incredible, Michelle. I mean, that's a change in the process, but optimistic in terms of the opportunity, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, as
For
we're
sure.
looking at another area, which I know you know well, and that is workforce.
Mm-hmm.
So, how have workforce expectations changed in the restaurant industry, and what effect specifically has this had on your members?
Yeah, I think every industry is faced with workforce expectation changes. There's definitely a situation where we all feel the shortage of workers, and we're trying to ensure that we can be an attractive place for people who are looking for work. And we think a lot in the association and with our members about how we change and improve the image of restaurant jobs. We want to change it from a tough job, tough culture, potentially job of last resort, to a career of choice. So many things that employees are looking for right now out of their work is flexible schedules, different and open-ended compensation models. They're looking for the opportunity to make a difference in people's lives, to serve others. And that's really the heart of what restaurants have to offer. And so there's a great way for us to take advantage of this changing expectation of the workforce and really drive home what we offer to workers in the industry. Um, Diversity has been a big part of the conversation of all companies and figuring out what they can do to make sure that they're an attractive place to work and that they're attracting people of all races, of all genders, bringing them into their employment. And restaurants have always been a leader in a place of opportunity for people. So that's a focus for us. We're thinking a lot about recognition of employee contributions, how we help our operators do that and really focus on that in a positive and productive way. And really talking to operators and training managers on the importance of getting to know each team member and what's important to that team member, what they want out of their work, what they're looking for from a career path, but also who they are as people. What's important to them in their lives, what's going on in their lives, knowing something about everyone as an individual and then letting them be that individual in the workplace is really important in a place where restaurants have so much to offer for the workforce. So for us, it's really about making the workforce understand that restaurants are an attractive place to be. It's a place where you can find a home and success, an opportunity to do work that is meaningful. And I think this will result in a tremendous retention of the current employees that we have as we're working to fill so many jobs.
Incredible. And that perspective is so vital for folks to understand about the individuals behind the industry. And by the way, it's called the hospitality industry for a reason, right? About you're being hospitable, it's helping others. So it's a powerful way to derive that happiness, that contribution when you're in that industry. And so there's not a lot of industries that allow for you to serve others in the way that hospitality industry does, and specifically the restaurant industry. And in your 2023 State of the Restaurant Industry, you project food industry workers to increase by 500,000 jobs. Michelle, what challenges does this bring to your members and/or opportunities? And how do you work with them to provide solutions to whatever needs that arise out of this situation?
Yeah, it's definitely ever present on the mind of restaurant operators of what they're doing to fill those jobs. Our restaurant operators tell me that they have less than 45 minutes after someone submits an application to schedule the interview. And if they don't schedule that interview in those 45 minutes, they're likely to lose that candidate entirely because they'll move on to other openings. It- you know, there are 2 openings right now for every 1 available candidate in the workforce, beyond just the restaurant industry, but the workforce in general. And so when you look at 2 openings per available candidate, you really have to think about how you're capturing those candidates so that they understand that they can find a home in the restaurant industry. Our restaurants right now, 2/3 of operators say that they're understaffed, and they're working to still deliver great quality service while they are understaffed. From an association standpoint, when we think about how we help our members, we're really tackling it from every angle. Certainly legislatively, we're thinking about what we can do to help promote positive environments. What can we do to invest in the next level or next generation of industry leaders? One important piece of legislation for us that we've been promoting in Congress is the Essential Workers for Economic Advancement Act. This is a bill that was introduced by Representative Smucker and Cuellar, and I think that there's a lot of opportunity if we can see this move forward. It actually allows for a 3-year visa for non-immigrant workers. So while we're not seeing Congress do much on immigration, this is a non-immigrant visa program that could solve a lot of workforce challenges. It starts small, capacity of 65,000 workers, and it's a market-based mechanism determined upon what availability is in the marketplace and whether or not there are other existing workers that are seeking those jobs. But based on that, the number of visas could move up or down by 20,000 workers. So providing a little bit of relief for those 500,000 openings that we're expecting here in the next year to continue. The other thing that we work on through the association is really developing a pipeline and helping young people understand the possibilities that exist in the restaurant industry. And we have a terrific training program called ProStart. It's a nationwide program, 2-year high school program. They reach approximately 145,000 students in nearly 1,800 schools. And this program is in all 50 states. We have it active in Guam and DC. So it's a tremendous network to help students gain exposure to the culinary side of the restaurant business, as well as the management side of the restaurant business. We think a lot about career readiness for people that are looking to get into work or need those skills. Restaurant Ready is a program that we have to help students in the Restaurant Ready curriculum develop a real love for culinary arts in an environment that's fun and rewarding. I had the opportunity in this last year to meet a young woman named Jasmine, who was a student at Rancho Cielo in California. And Jasmine has just a tremendous story. She was the oldest of 3 children, raised by a single mother after her father was killed. And of course, high school was difficult for Jasmine. And the pandemic didn't help. Her teachers told her she was too far behind to graduate. But Jasmine's mother didn't give up on her. She knew that she had a lot of potential, and her mother believed that if Jasmine went to Rancho Cielo and learned culinary skills, she could turn her life around. And so Jasmine enrolled in Restaurant Ready at Rancho Cielo at the age of 17. She's working towards her diploma and gaining job skills and certification in culinary arts. And today, Jasmine's on track to graduate as a student leader and has all of the confidence and conviction that she has earned from having real tangible skills. So there's a lot we can do to address the workforce challenges just by helping people get some exposure and gain an understanding of what they can do to succeed in this industry.
And that perspective is so powerful. And you mentioned early on in this interview, Michelle, that off-premise demand is surging. Mm-hmm. What challenges does this off-premise demand create for your members? And along with that, how important are partnerships to assess the trends?
Right. It's interesting. As I said, restaurant operators are all entrepreneurs at their heart. And so they're always thinking about this in terms of opportunities. I think restaurant owners are thinking a lot more about their physical space. As we said, 66% of consumers are more likely to have their meals off premise. And so that means so much more of the business is happening designed for takeout. And that has an impact on the physical space. Smaller dining rooms, more room for takeout and delivery operations. You see it when you go into restaurants where they'll have pickup locations. Obviously, there are third-party delivery drivers that are coming in, thinking about the way restaurants are built to meet those needs as part of the changes that restaurant operators are implementing right now. The other thing we're seeing is a lot of innovation and consideration around packaging. As we're doing off-premise, everyone is concerned about first, making sure that the food is arriving to your home or wherever you're going in a similar way to if that restaurant was served to you in a dining room. And then, of course, it's always thinking about how do we make sure that that packaging is sustainable, that we're having as small of an impact and a footprint for that packaging as possible. I think that you'll see that in, if you pay attention a little bit in your restaurant, takeout items, you'll notice a lot of changes in innovation that are both helping you get a product that tastes better and keeps the right temperature and also has a nice, real, sustainable impact. Third-party delivery partners in this process are really important to us in this landscape. And we at the National Association have some third-party principles on delivery that provide clarity on what that relationship should look like between restaurants and those third parties so that we can provide as much transparency and value to the customer as possible. So those are the big trends that we see around this off-premise demand right now.
Michelle, it's so insightful and so powerful to hear your perspective representing the entire restaurant industry. And so there's a few other areas that impact, help, scale, and that's technology and the digital tools that come along with it. How are these accelerating or assisting the industry?
It's fun always to think about the technology in any industry, but certainly in the restaurant industry. And we know that, the future belongs to those who innovate, and restaurants are certainly no exception. At its core, restaurants are always thinking about how are we focused on improving the customer experience. So if that's the center point for the decision making, then how do we provide technology that really drives towards improving that customer experience? 58% of restaurant owner operators say that using technology and automation will become more common and more important this year. And I think if we think through the challenges that we've just talked through with the workforce, the importance of that third-party delivery and the off-premise, that so much of that originates in a digital space, you could see where technology will have a big impact on the restaurant industry going forward. There's some fun things happening. We see people use AI to screen job applicants, to keep them engaged once they're hired. There's really fun stories about how AI is being used by different quick service restaurants. There's been some fun articles written about Wendy's and what they're doing in their drive-through. They've got essentially a chatbot AI that you can use for drive-through ordering. They find that it really increases accuracy and efficiency, which of course is what people that are going through a drive-through are looking for. The challenges from an operator perspective as they put that in and thinking about Wendy's specifically, they've talked about all of the different ways that you could order a Wendy's Frosty. And the different things that people call it. And of course, they have to make sure that the AI is loaded with all of those different possibilities in order to make that order accuracy a really important part of what they're delivering. So that's fun. We see a lot of new innovation in robotics. There's some great robotics for dishwashing. There's great robotics for actually flipping burgers and preparing fries. And we've certainly all seen the robots that are involved in delivering food. And, I think that this is just the start of where we see technology in restaurants. But again, when we think about technology and everybody's trying to figure out where to invest and where it makes sense, we never want to lose sight of the importance of ensuring that customers have that great experience. And are we doing things to enhance the customer experience? And as long as we keep that as our focus, I think that it's a very bright future for the restaurant industry using technology to solve some of our challenges.
I'm blown away. It's incredible to hear the breadth and depth of the technology, the uses, the use applications. And I'd like to change course a bit and talk about and ask you about inflation.
Mm-hmm.
And again, referring back to your 2023 State of the Restaurant Industry report, this report actually cited that 92% of restaurant operators, expressed rising food prices as a significant concern.
Mm-hmm.
How is the association and your members addressing this issue?
When you think about restaurants, everybody needs to remember that food costs and labor are restaurants' two highest costs consistently. You'll find that across every category of restaurant that it's food costs and labor. And so when food prices are up, it has a significant impact on restaurants and their profitability. Food prices are starting to come down from last year, but we are still more than 24% of where they were pre-pandemic. So down better than last year, but that 24% of just 3 years ago is definitely significant. I think that anybody that goes to the same restaurant over and over again will notice that there have been some changing menus that operators have implemented because of the food cost. They're substituting ingredients in places where they can do so as long as they're ensuring that quality doesn't suffer. They're shopping around a lot more for suppliers. That diversification of suppliers is big, keeping competition in play. And I think the other thing is the agility that restaurant operators are bringing to the way they handle food costs has been a big part of their success in fighting that inflationary pressure. That's staying flexible. It's interesting to see what is happening with restaurant operators who are working to solve some of these inflationary pressures. And, we've seen food prices go up. We've seen menu prices go up, although not as much as the food prices. And operators are always doing that and increasing prices through the lens and the filter of, are we still providing a great value for the customer? Is the customer still happy with the quality of the food that they're getting for the price that we're asking them to pay for that food? And that problem solving is really important as we manage food prices that, as I said, are still 24% above where they were pre-pandemic.
Michelle, that's just incredible to hear. And it's the response of the industry with substitutions and the ability to pivot has always been a hallmark of the restaurant industry. And so, with your leadership and your members' leadership, the National Restaurant Association and the restaurant industry, I am no doubt 100% certain will continue to thrive. Michelle, what is your call to action for our global audience at Ideagen Global?
Well, thank you so much for that, George. Restaurants are access points to the rich culture and traditions that exist across the world. So, my call to action for the global audience watching this program is go to a restaurant you haven't tried before. Get out there, try something new. Restaurants are always innovating. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised.
Michelle Korsmo, President and CEO, National Restaurant Association, leading the way, changing the world, and helping one of the most important industries in America thrive, the National Restaurant Association. Thank you so very much, Michelle. What a pleasure.
Thank you, George. Always a pleasure.